In 1879, ex-Civil War medics saw what no one else did, that in America, even life itself could be privatized. Thus was born the American Mutual Aid Ambulance Company, today known as Trauma Team. In the late 19th century, medicine was a service, but only loosely. Doctors were as likely to come to your parlor as to a hospital, and emergencies were mostly a matter of chance. What Trauma Team's forerunners did was radical for the time. They monetized certainty. For the right fee, you weren't left hoping a doctor happened by. You were guaranteed a carriage, a medic, and an extraction. That was revolutionary and exclusive.
Wealthy industrialists loved the model. They insured their bodies the same way they insure their railroads and mines. Mining accidents, factory fires, dueling mishaps. Not to protect the workers, of course, but to protect themselves. Early ads even bragged that a subscriber could expect to be treated before the blood dried. From the very beginning, the system was about more than saving lives. It was about deciding which lives were worth saving.
The clatter of hooves and rattling wheels soon gave way to the roar of engines. By the dawn of the 20th century, Trauma Team's promise of salvation could no longer keep pace with the modern city. Fires burned higher, factories chewed up workers by the dozens, and the streets themselves became battlegrounds of steel and speed. To stay ahead, Trauma Team abandoned the carriage and embraced the motor car, turning the miracle of survival into a streamlined, mechanized enterprise. And in the process, they discovered that what moved faster than medicine was profit.
The motorized ambulance wasn't just about faster response. It was a symbol, a promise that if you could pay, you would be rescued with the newest technology the modern age could offer. For everyone else, well, the factory gates were where help stopped. Their ad campaign at the time was "We'll arrive before rigor mortis," which was really quite catchy in the era. What's striking is how quickly this became a status symbol. These motor ambulances weren't just vehicles, they were rolling billboards for wealth and security. Chrome bumper and painted cross, Trauma Team was teaching the public a lesson that still echoes today. Survival was not a right, it was a subscription. But progress has a way of feeding on itself. What began as motorcars racing through crowded streets soon found its truest calling on the battlefields of the 20th century. In war, speed wasn't a luxury, it was survival. And where survival could be monetized, Trauma Team was already waiting. The ambulance became an armored lifeline, a contract on wheels, and for the first time, salvation arrived carrying not only medicine, but guns.
The world wars were a proving ground for medicine and for monetization. Trauma Team's early counterparts found fertile ground in military contracts. Armies needed VIPs and officers evacuated quickly, and that urgency translated into enormous profit margins. What's particularly revealing is that this is where we first see the blending of roles. Medics trained to save lives also began carrying weapons. Officially, it was to protect their patients. Unofficially, it marked the moment medicine became militarized. A doctor with a weapon was no longer just a healer. He was a corporate asset, protecting an investment on the battlefield. And that's the real legacy of the era. War normalized the idea that rescue was not just medical, but tactical. Once you cross that threshold, there's no going back.
When trouble comes a-knocking, don't you fear or pray. Trauma Team is on the job, they'll save the day. From curbside to bedside, they're never far away. Sign up today, the Trauma Way.
When the smoke of war cleared, Trauma Team did not retreat with the soldiers. They came home. And just as battlefields had taught them the value of rapid extraction, the booming suburbs of post-war America taught them something else entirely. Peace was a market too. In the cul-de-sacs and picket fences of the 1950s, survival became a lifestyle brand. Sold door-to-door, broadcast on television, and packaged as peace of mind for a monthly fee. For the first time, Trauma Team wasn't just saving lives, they were selling comfort.
Far away. Sign up today, the Trauma Way.
By the mid-20th century, the lesson of war was clear. Rescue had become a battlefield tactic. But as soldiers returned home and cities swelled, another battlefield emerged. One fought not with rifles, but with balance sheets. Hospitals, once symbols of civic duty, were increasingly entangled with private capital. Insurance firms, industrial tycoons, and pharmaceutical giants began to see medicine not only as service, but as industry. The stretcher and the stock certificate were now carried side by side. And from that merger of necessity and profit, the foundations of a new empire were laid.
We're live?
Oops. What you see after the war is a shift that's easy to overlook at first glance. Ambulances and hospitals had been about survival, about getting people through the worst day of their life. But suddenly, they were also about ownership. Who paid for that ambulance? Who held the deed to that hospital? The answer more and more often wasn't the city or the church or the state. It was private investors. You can trace the language of the era to see the change. Medical journals still talked about care and duty, but boardrooms talked about growth and returns. That dual vocabulary is important because it shows how the act of saving a life began to carry two simultaneous meanings, one humanitarian, the other financial.
Doctors having a say in medical decisions was rapidly removed from the equation as PPOs and HMOs began building a massive framework of bureaucracy under the guise of patient care in order to create a massive revenue stream. Prices soared, costs to patients quickly grew untenable, and successful lobbying shifted coverage to only those who worked for corporations, while simultaneously blaming undocumented workers and poor people for the disparity. It was a gamble which paid off. As billionaires grew richer, fully half the population continued to vote against their own interest until there was nothing left. What was now a multi-trillion euro-dollar industry, Trauma Team became part of the ubiquitous lexicon through successful recruitment and marketing.
Trauma Team would put out these slick recruitment videos highlighting fun, adventure, and camaraderie of being a part of their culture and how it differed from modern corpos, while never denying being a corp themselves with all the same trappings of indentured servitude each corp engenders. And it worked. Trauma Team set themselves apart as an employer which embraced and celebrated team building, which was novel in its approach by romanticizing its past using words like tradition, which invoked happier times despite never being central to their mission. NDAs were signed prior to beginning employee orientation, of course, but we know through leaks that the contrast between what was being sold versus what was transpiring was as grave as you might expect. Worse if one considers the dishonesty used to disillusion potentials.
Trauma Team International's key partnerships did more than just open new markets. They became a strategic rebranding tool. By aligning with civic institutions, charities, and even entertainment franchises, the corporation was able to project an image that softened the brutal realities of their tactical extractions. Sponsorships of public health campaigns, flashy ad placements, and curated community outreach programs reframed their operations not as mercenary interventions, but as a civic good. To the citizen watching from the ground, it felt less like a faceless corporation descending from the skies with guns and stretchers, and more like a trusted lifeline, an extension of public safety. The message was simple, but powerful. Trauma Team was not above the people.
Trauma Team was not above the people, but among them, of the people, for the people.
Further diversifying with a long-running dramatic television series following Watson Horror on WNS helped solidify their foothold in popular culture.
This was something the kids actually seemed excited about doing one day. More than Cowboys and Indians or even NCPD and Valentinos, they were playing Trauma and Maelstrom, then reading about their adventures in the next issue of manga. It was truly a media blitz.
Offering a fantastical view of what was essentially stockholder security, recruitment videos, comic books, video games, motion pictures, and brain dances. Children dressed up as Trauma Team members for Halloween and played with toy AVs in their bedrooms. And Trauma Team had successfully done what no other corporation had done before, becoming the supporting backbone of all other corporations. Arasaka, Militech, Kangtao, and Biotechnia, to name just a few, as well as endorsements for other pop culture items such as All Foods Burrito, XXL, and Kabuto Manufacturing's popular nitrogenated soda, Nicola.
Taste the love!
Nicola!
Official drink of Trauma Team. Taste the love.
And so, after more than a century of evolution, from horse-drawn carriages to armored AVs screaming through the neon haze, one question remains. Is Night City truly any safer because of Trauma Team? They extract, they stabilize, they profit, their clients survive, if they can afford to. But for the rest, the sirens mean something else entirely, proof that in this city, life is worth exactly as much as you can pay. So what does safety mean in a world where survival itself is privatized? Perhaps that's Trauma Team's greatest success and Night City's greatest tragedy. Safety exists, but only behind a paywall.